And now for something completely different from the quaint village of Maberly, just a few miles west of Perth. Different is perhaps an understatement, considering who Charlie Greenwell recently dropped in on. The individual was a man called Willie Nelson. No, not the singer, but Willie Nelson, candlestick maker, known locally as Monster Man.
Come on.
There can be no denying that Willie Nelson is different. He admits himself that he's something of an oddity, not what you might call your average man in the street. For starters, he's close to nature and everything that goes with it, including the ducks, hens, chickens, and anything else that just happens to roam past his workshop. He gets along so well with his feathered friends, he claims he can even hypnotize them.
Abracadabra. Abracadabra. Okay.
And this is just a sample of what Willie Nelson can do, as we were to soon find out when we entered his workshop. It's here where we were introduced to his two monstrous creations, this 17-foot-high figure made out of 2,000 pounds of wax, and his 10-foot-tall associate.
Willie, the $64,000 question, how did you get...
And sell the owl for $10 or $15.
What about the big brown candle behind you?
Oh, the big brown one. It's, well, rather than carrying a whole slew of candles around in boxes to show what I can do, I make one candle with just about everything I can do in the one candle, like children's faces and fish, old men up here, Libra sign, elephant, birds, and candles. And I use beeswax because it's easier to carve. And it was paraffin. I left it out here in the wintertime. It would crack. But I use beeswax and it doesn't crack.
Is there a market? I know this is an example of your work, but is there a market for that kind of candle?
Oh, I sold one candle for $1,000. It was a 45-gallon drum. And all I did was fill it with wax and chisel the metal off, and somebody bought it.
Moving away from the conventional candles to this not-so-conventional figure here. How did that come about?
My monster. Well, as you know, there's 12 or 13 wax museums in Niagara Falls. And I was bored. I went to one, went to the other, and they all had the same. And I was thinking maybe they need something different to attract people. And that's why I built this one, hoping that maybe one of the wax museums would like to have it as an attraction, a public attraction.
I'm intrigued at the number of hands I see, wax hands.
Oh, the wax hands. Oh, yes. Well, I do replicas of people's hands and faces. And I like making hands, especially children, and they can be bronzed. And it's nice that you have your hands of your children when they were very young, and when they're old, you can present them with your hand. Here's your hand when you were 5 years old. And they're nice keepsake items, as well as being, not to cure, but it helps relieve the pain for arthritis. Well, they use wax in hospitals now, but paraffin wax. I add cayenne pepper to my wax so that it penetrates into the bone. It does help. It does help shrink swollen knuckles and stop pain. There's an interesting story about black candles here, as you see. That it's actually against the law to make black candles or sell or burn black candles. It seemed to have been a cult in 1470 in England. A group of witches who made black candles and burned them. And the story's been told that these witches were stoned to death and burned at the stake for making black candles. So there had been a law passed that black candles are illegal, and the law still stands. I suppose you're probably wondering what this is about here. Well, I take my candles to the flea markets from time to time, and in the past year or two, people just haven't been buying my candles. So I said, well, I'm going to develop some kind of a contraption to attract the people to my booth. So I built this, and it's just about mechanical parts, aircraft parts, and rotors and gyros, what have you. And I put it on my booth at the flea markets. People would just flock over, and they'd buy candles, and they'd say, what is this? I had to give it a name, so I call it a mechanism. And two, that I use it to attract people to my booth, and it really works.
As I said at the beginning of this story, Willie Nelson is different. The people of Maberly are still not quite sure how to take him or his house of wax. But as the old saying goes, the folks in these parts ain't seen nothing yet. It's Willy's ambition to become the local Reeve.